Okay, so this is our very first story, and it's super short because I just wanted to practice with everything that you should be doing for this unit. So yes, we should read, we should stop frequently and take notes as we read, and then after you're finished with the whole story, you should kind of put it all together and fill out that short story chart. So the first story is on page 405 in your textbook. You could read along in the book as I go through it on the video, and make sure you're taking notes as you go. So it is called The Sniper, and the author is Liam O'Flaherty. So here we go. Okay, the long June twilight faded into night. Dublin lay enveloped in darkness, but for the dim light of the moon that shone through fleecy clouds, casting a pale light as of approaching dawn over the streets and the dark waters of the Liffey. Around the beleaguered four courts, the heavy guns roared. Here and there through the city, machine guns and rifles broke the silence of the night, spasmodically, like dogs barking on lone farms. Republicans and Free Staters were waging civil war. On a rooftop near O'Connell Bridge, a Republican sniper lay watching. Beside him lay his rifle, and over his shoulders were slung a pair of field glasses. His face was the face of a student, thin and ascetic, but his eyes had the cold gleam of the fanatic. They were deep and thoughtful, the eyes of a man who is used to looking at death. Okay, so from these first two paragraphs, you can definitely tell a lot about a certain part of the story. So think about your plot map, the little triangular map. This is the very first part that starts with an E, and it's helping to set up our characters and our setting. So think about your main character that's described here. We never have a name for him. We just have his job title. Okay, and the setting is also described in these first two paragraphs. If you look down on the bottom of the page, at the little footnote, Republican and Free Staters, they're talking about the Irish Republican Army. And just as a FYI, I think that took place back in the early 1900s. Okay, so next paragraph, third paragraph down. He was eating a sandwich hungrily. He had eaten nothing since morning. He had been too excited to eat. He finished the sandwich, and, taking a flask of whiskey from his pocket, he took a short draught. Then he returned the flask to his pocket. He paused for a moment, considering whether he should risk a smoke. It was dangerous. The flash might be seen in the darkness, and there were enemies watching. He decided to take the risk. Placing a cigarette between his lips, he struck a match, inhaled the smoke hurriedly, and put out the light. Almost immediately a bullet flattened itself against the parapet of the roof. The sniper took another whiff and put out the cigarette. Then he swore softly and crawled away to the left. Okay, so think about the situation. Think about how he's reacting to the situation. What do we know about our main character thus far? Also, parapet. If you look down at the footnote here, so he's up on top of the roof, and this is a little wall that he's kind of hiding behind. He's using it to block him. Okay, fourth paragraph. Cautiously, he raised himself and peered over the parapet. There was a flash, and a bullet whizzed over his head. He dropped immediately. He had seen the flash. It had come from the opposite side of the street. He rolled over the roof to a chimney stack in the rear, and slowly drew himself up behind it until his eyes were level with the top of the parapet. There was nothing to be seen, just the dim outline of the opposite housetop against the blue sky. His enemy was under cover. Just then an armored car came across the bridge and advanced slowly up the street. It stopped on the opposite side of the street, 50 yards ahead. The sniper could hear the dull panting of the motor. His heart beat faster. It was an enemy car. He wanted to fire, but he knew it was useless. His bullets would never pierce the steel that covered the gray monster. Okay, so from this part of the story, we see that we have our main character, which is also known as a character type that starts with a P, and we have the enemies in this story, which are other character types that start with an A. So definitely get that into your notes. Also, we can figure out the point of view from this point in the story as well. So think about your 5 points of view and think about which one this would be based on what's happening in the story so far. Okay, so next page. Okay, let me pull this down. Okay, so next page. Then Round the corner of a side street came an old woman, her head covered by a tattered shawl. She began to talk to the man in the turret of the car. She was pointing to the roof where the sniper lay. An informer. The turret opened. A man's head and shoulders appeared, looking toward the sniper. The sniper raised his rifle and fired. The head fell heavily on the turret wall. The woman darted toward the side street, and the sniper fired again. The woman whirled round and fell with a shriek into the gutter. Suddenly, from the opposite roof, a shot rang out, and the sniper dropped his rifle with a curse. The rifle clattered to the roof. The sniper thought the noise would wake the dead. He stopped to pick the rifle up, but he couldn't lift it. His forearm was dead. He muttered, "I'm hit." So a lot of action just happened here. So not only was he hit, but he also killed 2 people. So look at the way that he's killing those people. Just so you know, the little old lady is not a little old lady. Look at why he killed her. Again, look at what this tells us about our sniper. Okay, picking up line 46. Dropping flat onto the roof, he crawled back to the parapet. With his left hand, he felt the injured right forearm. The blood was oozing through the sleeve of his coat. There was no pain, just a deadened sensation, as if the arm had been cut off. Quickly he drew his knife from his pocket, opened it on the breastwork of the parapet, and ripped open the sleeve. There was a small hole where the bullet had entered. On the other side there was no hole. The bullet had lodged in the bone. It must have fractured it. He bent the arm below the wound. The arm bent back easily. He ground his teeth to overcome the pain. Then, taking out the field dressing, he ripped open the packet with his knife. He broke the neck of the iodine bottle and let the bitter fluid drip onto the wound. A paroxysm of pain swept through him. He placed the cotton wadding over the wound and wrapped the dressing over it. He tied the end with his teeth. Then he lay still against the parapet, and closing his eyes, he made an effort of will to overcome the pain. So think about this. He just broke his arm so badly that he could bend it backward the wrong way, but look at how he's acting. So again, find some adjectives to use to describe his personality at this point based on his actions. Okay, starting at line 62. In the street beneath, all was still. The armored car had retired speedily over the bridge, with the machine gunner's head hanging lifelessly over the turret. The woman's corpse lay still in the gutter. The sniper lay for a long moment, nursing his wounded arm and planning escape. Morning must not find him wounded on the roof. The enemy on the opposite roof covered his escape. He must kill that enemy, and he could not use his rifle. He had only a revolver to do it. Then he thought of a plan. Taking off his cap, he placed it over the muzzle of his rifle. Then he pushed the rifle slowly upwards over the parapet, until the cap was visible from the opposite side of the street. Almost immediately there was a report, and a bullet pierced the center of the cap. The sniper slanted the rifle forward. The cap slipped down into the street. Then, catching the rifle in the middle, the sniper dropped his left hand over the roof and let it hang, lifelessly. After a few moments he let the rifle drop to the street. Then he sank to the roof, dragging his hand with him. So this part is a little confusing, so look back and read over it if you have to. But he had a plan in mind, and he executed that plan really, really well. So think about what he was trying to do here, and think about what type of character this makes him. Okay, crawling quickly to the left, he peered up at the corner of the roof. His ruse had succeeded. The other sniper, seeing the cap and rifle fall, thought that... Next page. Thought that he had killed his man. He was now standing before a row of chimney pots, looking across with his head clearly silhouetted against the western sky. The Republican sniper smiled and lifted his revolver above the edge of the parapet. The distance was about 50 yards. A hard shot in the dim light, and his right arm was paining him. He took steady aim. His hand trembled with eagerness. Pressing his lips together, he took a deep breath through his nostrils and fired. He was almost deafened with the report, and his arm shook with the recoil. Then, when the smoke cleared, he peered across and uttered a cry of joy. His enemy had been hit. He was reeling over the parapet in his death agony. He struggled to keep his feet, but he was slowly falling forward, as if in a dream. The rifle fell from his grasp. hit the parapet, fell over, bounded off the pole of a barber shop beneath, and then clattered onto the pavement. Then the dying man on the roof crumpled up and fell forward. The body turned over and over in space and hit the ground with a dull thud. Then it lay still. So right here, think about what he just did. So he had this ruse. Okay, ruse is a trick. Okay, so he tricked the enemy, and think about what he was able to do because of this trick. Okay, now we're picking up with line 95. The sniper looked at his enemy falling, and he shuddered. The lust of battle died in him. He became bitten by remorse. The sweat stood out in beads on his forehead. Weakened by his wound and the long summer day of fasting and watching on the roof, he revolted from the sight of the shattered mass of his dead enemy. His teeth chattered. He began to gibber to himself, cursing the war, cursing himself, cursing everybody. He looked at the smoking revolver in his hand, and with an oath he hurled it to the roof at his feet. The revolver went off with the concussion, and the bullet whizzed past the sniper's head. He was frightened back to his senses by the shock. His nerves steadied. The cloud of fear scattered from his mind, and he laughed. Now, this part is really important. These two paragraphs are showing his state of mind now and his personality. Now, think about how he was acting in the beginning of the story, and now think about how he's described here. What kind of character does this make him? So think about the type of character that would make him. It's either going to be static or dynamic, and describe all the ways that make him that character type, especially from the way we've seen him in the beginning versus what we've just seen in these last two paragraphs. Okay, next, taking the whiskey flask from his pocket, he emptied it at a draught, and he felt reckless under the influence of the spirits. He decided to leave the roof and look for his company commander to report. Everywhere around was quiet. There was not much danger in going through the streets, so he picked up his revolver and put it in his pocket. Then he crawled down through the skylight to the house underneath. When the sniper reached the laneway on the street level, he felt a sudden curiosity as to the identity of the enemy sniper whom he had killed. He decided that he was a good shot, whoever he was. He wondered if he knew him. Perhaps he had been in his own company before the split in the army. He decided to risk going over to have a look at him. He peered around the corner into O'Connell Street. In the upper part of the street there was heavy firing, but around here all was quiet. The sniper darted across the street. A machine gun tore up the ground around him with a hail of bullets, but he escaped. He threw himself face downward beside the corpse. The machine gun stopped. Then the sniper turned over the dead body and looked into his brother's face. Ha ha. Shaka. Okay, so that is a shocking ending. Okay, it's also a literary element. Think about what literary element that is, and which specific type of literary element that is, and why it is that type. So, pretty important. Get notes on that. Also, think about the main conflict in this story. I would say it's between two types, man versus blank and man versus blank. So, describe those two main types of conflict present in the story. Also, think about what is the climax of this story. Okay, remember, climax is twofold. It's both an intense moment and a turning point. So think about what the climax of this story is and describe how it is the climax. And finally, I do want you to think about theme. Wow, there's a lot of emails. Sorry about that. So theme. Theme, remember, is what the author's trying to say about a subject. So if the subject is war, what is the author saying about war? Or if the subject is death, what is the author saying about death? Remember to use nice, strong action verbs when you're trying to make a theme. Don't use characters. Don't use first or second person. So just, you know, what is the author trying to say about the subject? Alrighty, I will see you guys after Thanksgiving break. Okay, have an awesome break. I'll see you later. Bye.